If there's any one single person who can be said to have created modern science, it's got to be Galileo.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at artists, scientists, and visionaries who died in obscurity, dismissal, or even disgrace, only to be hailed as icons long after their final breath.
The ability to explain hereditary diseases and to engineer plants with desired properties are all consequences of the fundamental theory founded by Mendel.
H.P. Lovecraft.
One whose name has become an adjective for the particular type of terror he inspired.
Now considered the father of cosmic horror, H.P. Lovecraft was virtually unknown during his lifetime. Publishing most of his works in pulp magazines like Weird Tales, Lovecraft's unsettling vision of ancient gods, forbidden knowledge, and existential dread never reached a broad audience. He died in 1937, convinced he had failed as a writer. However, after his death, his mythos of Cthulhu, Arkham, and the Necronomicon was preserved and expanded upon by dedicated fans.
He was widely dismissed as an untalented writer by critics and public audiences alike. His works were viewed as nothing more than fodder for young adults and eccentrics.
Lovecraft's work would be a pivotal influence on writing giants like Stephen King and modern horror as a whole. Today, the Lovecraftian style is a genre of its own, proving that its founder's imagination was larger than the universe he created.
Humanity has come a long way from what the world looked like when Lovecraft was alive, but the contemplation of our role in the universe, or lack thereof, is still at the forefront of our minds.
Johannes Vermeer. This Dutch master is now celebrated alongside greats like Rembrandt and Van Gogh, but Johannes Vermeer died nearly forgotten in 1675. Famed for his exquisite use of light in works like Girl with a Pearl Earring, Vermeer struggled financially. Throughout his life, he produced only around 34 paintings. His limited output and local reputation meant he faded into obscurity after his death. It wasn't until nearly 3 centuries later that art historians rediscovered the genius of his work, stunned by his delicate brushwork and photographic realism.
Every little thing in Vermeer's, every little point, every little mark has a meaning and has a purpose. Nothing is left to chance.
Vermeer's once forgotten canvases are now priceless treasures, exhibited in the world's greatest museums. A man who lived quietly painting domestic serenity became centuries later a titan of Western art.
Part of the magic of Vermeer is to create more than he actually has put down. Give the sense of more there than there is.
Srinivasa Ramanujan.
From a very early age, just instinctively, he was thinking about numbers, he was calculating, he was fascinated by numbers. Numbers, he said, had personalities for him. They had a kind of life for him.
Born in India with no formal training, Srinivasa Ramanujan filled notebooks with equations, many of which he claimed were shown to him in his dreams by his family deity, Namagiri. His genius was finally noticed by British mathematician G.H. Hardy, who insisted that Ramanujan visit Cambridge.
He was able to take a little that he knew farther than most mathematicians would be able to take them. He had the vision to see what was important.
However, even after reaching Cambridge, Ramanujan's work was so advanced that many mathematicians of his time struggled to comprehend it. Ramanujan would die at the young age of 32, his potential barely tapped. Decades later, mathematicians proved the depth of his discoveries. Many of his theorems now underpin foundational aspects of modern number theory and string theory. Ramanujan didn't just solve equations, he was the man who knew infinity, and it took the world generations to understand.
Ramanujan's work has now formed the basis for superstring theory and multidimensional physics, some of the most advanced math that all the high-end scientists are still using today.
Ada Lovelace.
The pioneer who first saw the true power of the computer lived way back.
Augusta Ada King, the Countess of Lovelace, contemplated computers that could go beyond calculation. Working with Charles Babbage's analytical engine in the 1800s, Ada wrote the first ever computational algorithm. Unfortunately, she was dismissed as nothing more than a fanciful aristocrat dabbling in mathematics. Victorian society couldn't fathom her vision that machines could compose music, create art, or think symbolically.
She published the first computer program as long ago as 1843.
It did not help her cause that she lived in an era where women were poorly represented in society. It wasn't until the rise of computing in the 20th century that Ada's insights were hailed and she was recognized as the first computer programmer. Today, her legacy lives on in programming languages, tech awards, and every device powered by digital thought.
This was somebody with enormous talent, in an extraordinary environment, hugely privileged, with a background that made her a celebrity from birth. struggling for balance. How could she make meaning of her life? And the meaning she sought was to be a savant.
Franz Kafka.
He'd eked out an obscure and unexceptional life. But when the lawyer put pen to paper, the writer conjured a disturbing world where the absurd was commonplace and reality a nightmare.
Franz Kafka died in 1924 with a peculiar set of instructions in his will. He wished for his unpublished manuscripts to be burned. His close friend, Max Brod, refused to follow his last request, and thankfully, literature was forever changed. Kafka's stories were surreal and disquieting, exploring alienation, absurdity, and bureaucratic nightmares. After his passing, Kafka's writings struck a nerve with a modern world drowning in systems and searching for meaning. Yet during his lifetime, Kafka was largely unknown and deeply convinced of his own failure as a writer. Today, the phrase Kafkaesque is found in dictionaries, and his style is a pillar of existential literature. The man who feared being misunderstood became the author of an era's most haunting truths.
Since his death, Franz Kafka's work has become enormously influential. It remains unrivaled for its intensity, modernity, and prescience.
Johann Sebastian Bach.
First and foremost, Bach was a brilliant musician, a virtuoso such as the world had never seen before.
Although admired by some experts, Johann Sebastian Bach's complex Baroque compositions were mostly overshadowed by his skill as a performer. After his death in 1750, his works remained forgotten, surviving mostly as teaching exercises. It wasn't until 1829, when Felix Mendelssohn revived Bach's St. Matthew Passion, that the world rediscovered his immense genius. From the Brandenburg concertos to the Well-Tempered Clavier, Bach's music became the foundation of Western classical theory. Now revered as the father of harmony, the composer once dismissed as old-fashioned is immortal and recognized as the silent architect behind centuries of music.
His attitude to composing was that of a medieval craftsman. He believed that everyone has his place in the world, where he should humbly work to God's greater glory.
Emily Dickinson.
She is as beloved as ever, and now the poet Emily Dickinson is getting even more attention and a new look in books, online, on film, and in a major museum exhibit.
Emily Dickinson spent most of her life in seclusion, writing nearly 1,800 poems that she never intended to publish. During her lifetime, fewer than a dozen of her pieces saw print, and even those were heavily edited to conform to the poetic norms of the day. Emily's stark dashes, unconventional capitalization, and raw, introspective voices were considered too strange, too fragmented. She wrote on just about everything, including death, eternity, faith, and longing, with unsettling clarity.
She is a constant summons to me to think about language and its preciseness. And not only its preciseness, but its power.
Still, the world outside her Amherst home barely had any clue of her works. After her death in 1886, her sister discovered her handwritten bundles, which revealed a poetic revolutionary. Today, Dickinson is hailed as one of America's greatest literary voices, the recluse who quietly reinvented poetry.
She broke the glass ceiling in poetry. And Emily Dickinson is like a beacon of verbal power that will not be silenced.
Vincent van Gogh.
You probably know me already. I'm famous the world over. But do you know my story?
Vincent van Gogh lived a life defined by struggle. He was plagued by financial hardship, mental illness, and artistic rejection. In just a decade, he created more than 2,000 works. These were paintings with bold colors and emotional intensity that confounded critics of his time. Despite his massive resume, Van Gogh sold only one painting during his lifetime.
The work wasn't selling. I rarely had money for models, so I'd often end up looking in the mirror.
His turbulent friendship with fellow artist Paul Gauguin, his infamous self-inflicted ear injury, and his death at the young age of 37 painted the tragic portrait of a man unseen. But after his death, his brother's widow, Johanna van Gogh Bonger, championed his legacy. Today, Van Gogh's Starry Night, sunflowers, and self-portraits are cultural treasures. The man who felt he was forgotten now lives forever on canvas.
That strange, wild man who roamed the fields of Provence was not only the world's greatest artist, but also one of the greatest men who ever lived.
Gregor Mendel. In a quiet monastery garden, Gregor Mendel conducted meticulous experiments on pea plants, uncovering the fundamental laws of heredity.
Mendel set us straight on the fundamental properties of inheritance, which eventually paved the way for the development of modern genetics.
Using his pea plants, Mendel would discern dominant and recessive traits, segregation, and independent assortment. Publishing his groundbreaking findings in 1866, Mendel's work would unfortunately be ignored by the scientific community. who would dismiss it as a botanical curiosity. Mendel returned to clerical duties, never realizing that he had founded the field of genetics. It wasn't until 1900, when 3 scientists independently rediscovered his results, that Mendel's genius was finally realized. Mendel died in obscurity, but his once overlooked ratios became the blueprint for much of modern biology, medicine, and DNA research. Every Punnett square, genetic test, and gene therapy now traces back to his monastery garden.
The ability to explain hereditary diseases and to engineer plants with desired properties are all consequences of the fundamental theory founded by Mendel.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Galileo Galilei.
He was such a brilliant writer, he was a tremendous wit. If there's any one single person who can be said to have created modern science, it's got to be Galileo.
In an era when the church held immense power, Galileo Galilei dared to aim his telescope at the heavens and challenge the belief in an Earth-centered universe. He discovered moons orbiting Jupiter, observed the phases of Venus, and proved that the Earth was not the center of the universe. Instead of praise, Galileo faced the Inquisition. Under the threat of torture, Galileo was forced to recant his beliefs, spending his final years under house arrest.
Dialogue on the 2 chief systems of the world was added to the index of prohibited books. It would remain banned for the next 200 years.
His work was banned. Centuries after his death, the Catholic Church acknowledged his insight. Galileo's defiance gave birth to astronomy, physics, and the scientific method itself. Galileo died silenced, but his vision echoed across the stars. Which overlooked genius do you think deserves recognition the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more content.